Since one of the mid patches to Frostbolt, I've been wanting to play with this skill, especially on a Chronomancer, just because I think the thematic with Cold Chrono fits really well. So what the patch did more than anything was increase the radius of the explosion from Frostbolt. And this is really significant because it allows for much more consistent overlapping if you can actually get those things to explode. Now this build, let's talk about the defenses first. It's using Sacrosanctum. This isn't like a new setup. I think a ton of people are trying to do this in different ways, both on Lich and Chrono mostly. But basically this chest allows your recoup from life to also apply to your energy shield. Basically doubling your recoup, or, just applying to ES most importantly, because, energy shield really is the only topside defense. Otherwise, my character stacks a ton of recoup off pretty much every node on the tree. I got a Necromantic Aegis jewel, like one of the jewels that lets you allocate in that area, which is really efficient for grabbing the recoup nodes around there. And then stacks a bit of recoup from gear to just get, I think, around 120% recoup from either Fizz or Elemental damage. And then also using the unique charm for some extra recoup for chaos damage. It doesn't do really great against massive one-shots or really quick damage coming out, but it is, I guess, like fairly tanky as far as casters go. The offensive set is actually something I'm even more excited about. So this is basically enabled by Sire of Shards and Snake Pit, this particular build. You don't really need to play Sire, but Snake Pit is mandatory. So by default, Frostbolt always pierces every enemy, and that's actually really annoying to deal with. But Snake Pit can actually remove this pierce behavior entirely and then give you a free fork or chain. In my case, I'm using fork, and then I'm able to use the split shot node on the tree, which I've anointed, to give me an average of 2.75 forking Frostbolt projectiles every single time it hits a target. In this case, I hit Frostball as my target, and then I hit more Frostballs after that initial hit. It'll fork out, and then those projectiles can then explode on the next impact. So they hit more Frostballs, then explode, and basically does a ton of damage, and that damage is multiplied by 6 times, almost sort of for free with Sire of Shards, since I get a +5 projectile with a Vault Corruption, increasing the number of additional projectiles from 4 to 5. Damage bottleneck then actually comes from Frost Wall, because as soon as I run out of Frost Wall charges, I'm not able to actually make those Frostbolt projectiles collide against anything, and that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people play the Cast on Crit Comet variation of, I guess, Cold Chrono. I don't think that's really good, honestly. I think Comet's kind of weak, especially as a triggered skill. You'd be better off playing Conversion and Arc or something like that. But Chronomancer is actually really synergistic with this. First, you have the 33% chance to not consume any cooldown, and this is just great in general for just, generally 33% more Frostballs. But then when you pair that with Time Snap, you're able to reset your Frostball CD, get 3 charges back instantly. So Chronomancer ends up actually being a very efficient offensive choice for this build, as well as a really great defensive choice in making your recoup apply twice as fast. I will say though, there are definitely a few issues with this build. Firstly, it tops out DPS probably around 1 to 1.5 million with this particular setup. I think if you're opting for rare gear and not playing Sire, there's different ways to do it. I think a Deadeye could be really powerful, but Frostbolt's damage is going to be topped out with this particular setup. Secondly, and I've already mentioned this, defensively it's not really great against one-shots right now. It's pretty hard to get enough resistances as well because there's so many mandatory uniques on this. That said, if you were to play this Chrono setup on a Lich and then play at Zeri Sustain, and then you do have great mana regen on a Lich as well, you'll be much more resilient to one-shots. And honestly, I think even the slower recoup can be fine because of how efficient that split recoup is with the damage bypass ES. Finally, and most problematically, and you've probably seen in this video, Chilled Ground is really bad for GPU. I don't think there's a single scenario in Path of Exile 2 yet where my GPU has actually been the bottleneck on my hardware. This is the first build that's actually been the case, and just because ground effects are so incredibly bad. Every time I cast a Frostbolt, it's making 6 chilled ground effects. That's splitting off. I think it's an average of like 15 ground effects every single cast I do. That's not counting the fact that Frostbolt itself is super laggy. The Frostbolt explosion is really laggy. Bloom is really laggy. You can't disable that. There's a ton of lighting effects going on, a ton of particle effects. So that's really annoying, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe they'll let us kind of disable ground effects entirely or just better optimize the game. But that is a huge issue right now and sort of a major point of frustration. That said, I thought this build was super cool. Love to share it with you guys. There's a mobile link in the description. Hope you enjoy.